My name is Patrick McCabe. I've had severely misaligned teeth my whole life. They were truly terrible. Because of that and a couple other issues, I had my wisdom teeth removed much later than most. Typically, people have them taken out in high school or early in college, but I was an exception. I didn't even have my consultation until after I'd finished college. The entire ordeal was excruciating and ranks among the most aggravating experiences I've ever endured. I won't go into the tedious details of my recovery, but there's one critical point. The pain was so intense, I couldn't sleep through the night without medication. I devised a system of waking myself every 3 hours to alternate between the two prescribed pills. It was miserable, but it was the only way to stave off the massive, tear-inducing toothaches. Needless to say, my sleep schedule was completely ruined. My body adapted to these 3-hour cycles of sleep and wakefulness, and returning to a normal rhythm was difficult even after I'd healed. That disruption was honestly the worst part. It wasn't normal. I stopped feeling human after a while, like I'd become something else entirely in that constant cycle of waking and sleeping. I'd rather not dwell on it. One night early in my recovery, around 4 in the morning, I was up for my medication and couldn't fall back asleep. Maybe it was my condition, or maybe because the AC had failed, but my room was unusually hot. After tossing for 10 minutes, I opened my bedroom window for relief. It helped slightly, but sleep still wouldn't come. I was lying there miserably, pleading silently to just drift off, but of course I remained wide awake. Eventually, I began to notice a strange noise from outside. Since I never slept with the window open, I initially wrote it off as a normal outdoor sound, but the more I listened, the more unnatural it seemed. It was a scratching sound, like an animal dragging its claws. The noise grew louder, seeming to come from directly above me on the roof, then gradually faded away. Living in a wooded area, we've had raccoons and pests before, so I assumed it was a critter. I wanted to ignore it, but I knew my dad would be furious if something got into the attic again, and I wasn't close to sleeping anyway. So I got up, went to the garage for a heavy-duty flashlight, and headed out the back door. My first floor room is near the back where the roof is lowest, so I started there, sweeping the beam across the shingles. Seeing nothing, I circled the house, tried to illuminate as much roof as possible, figuring I just needed to spot and scare the animal away. Near the higher front roof, I caught movement in the edge of the light. I swung the beam toward it and almost fainted. There was a person on the roof. A naked, fully grown human being, frozen in the flashlight's glare. I screamed involuntarily, and as I did, the figure began to move with a frantic, jerking speed as if allergic to the light. I tried to track them with the flashlight, but they moved impossibly fast for someone barefoot on loose shingles. They headed back toward my room, and I sprinted around the house to intercept them. A reckless impulse. I should have run inside, yelling for my dad as I ran. I reached the back just as the person prepared to jump from the roof. I thought there was no way to jump from even that lower point without serious injury, but they leaped without hesitation, hitting the concrete with a sickening thud. I was frozen in shock, unable to process that someone had just done that. My daze lasted only a second, but it was enough. The person immediately got up and charged, tackling me to the ground. He began clawing at my eyes, grunting and spitting, with a ferocious strength that defied logic. I felt blood streaming down my face and was certain I was going to die. Then the back door burst open and my dad was there, pulling the man off me with furious, desperate strength. I scrambled up to see the psycho, now covered in my blood, break free from my dad's grip. Instead of attacking again, he ran to the edge of our yard, scaled the fence, and vanished into the dark woods. My dad and I stood there in stunned silence as the sound of his flight faded away. The rest is a blur. We rushed to the hospital that night. My dad nearly crashed the car. I'd lost a lot of blood and needed a battery of shots to prevent infection from whatever that man might have carried. The only small mercy was that my mouth was untouched, so my dental work was spared. The police were ineffective, stating a search of the vast woods was unfeasible and suggesting security cameras could have prevented it all. My dad later found evidence the man had been trying to dig into our attic like an animal. Ironically, my mom was the most affected, crying repeatedly over the incident and spearheading a major upgrade to our home security. I still have no explanation for that night. Who he was, where he came from, how he found our house. These are just a few of the countless questions about that night I fear will never be answered. My house has a very unique design. I call it unique, but most people would probably say it's weird. And in fact, they have. Almost every friend I've hosted has said so, even a few girls I've snuck in while my parents were away. As much as I'd love to just post pictures, my parents wouldn't appreciate that, so I'll stick to the important details. For this story, there's really only one you need to know. Most houses have a porch or walkway leading to the front door, often with a little roof above it. My house has a covered hallway you have to walk through before you're actually inside. Imagine your front door with the house on either side, then push that entrance further back into the building. It's like walking between two parts of the house without being indoors. My bedroom is on the first floor, right beside this external hallway. If I stand and look out the window next to my bed, I can see anyone at the front door, though their back would be to me. Hopefully that makes sense. Since I was little, I've made a habit of peeping out that window whenever the doorbell rings, like having a hidden camera to check who's there before showing myself. What I'm about to tell you happened just a few months ago, right at the start of summer. My parents were out of town for the week, so I decided to have my girlfriend, Anna, sleep over for a few days. My strict, traditional parents would never allow it, but what they didn't know wouldn't hurt them. Plus, they've met Anna many times, so it wasn't like I was bringing a stranger home. The first night was uneventful, just a relaxed movie night with snacks and a little wine. We went to bed at a reasonable hour and swam in the pool the next morning. Neither of us are big partiers, so we were happy just relaxing, playing games, and watching TV together. The second night is when things changed. It was around midnight. We were talking in the dark, about to sleep, when I heard something outside, a screeching or dragging sound. I shushed Anna and listened. It seemed to come from the driveway, which is off to the side of the house, meaning it was very close. After a moment, I realized it was one of my dad's trash cans being moved. He sometimes leaves them in front of the garage, and I was pretty sure I'd seen him out there earlier. My first thought was that an animal was scavenging for scraps. Still, hearing something rummaging around your driveway in the dark is creepy, especially when you're home alone. I told Anna to stay put while I went to shoo away whatever it was. I calmly walked to the front door, flipped on the exterior lights, but they only lit the yard and porch, not the driveway. Reluctantly, I stepped outside, hoping my presence would scare it off. I stood on the porch for several seconds, waiting to hear scurrying or see an animal run, but nothing happened. The sound had stopped too. It was unlikely it had already fled, since I'd been listening the whole time. Even more reluctantly, I turned on my phone's flashlight and walked toward the driveway. One of the trash cans was overturned, garbage scattered everywhere. I groaned, knowing I'd have to clean it up. I didn't see any animal, so I assumed it had slipped away unnoticed. After shining my light around to be sure, I started picking everything up and tossing it back into the can. Once finished, I moved all the cans into the garage and locked it, not wanting to risk another disturbance later. Back in bed, Anna was barely awake. I kissed her forehead and tried to settle in without disturbing her. I was in that hazy state between waking and dreaming when I heard a gentle tapping like metal on glass. I thought it was part of my half-dream, but something felt off. Instead of drifting off, I opened my eyes and looked around. The tapping didn't stop. I froze. It wasn't in my head, it was in the room. After a few seconds, I realized it wasn't inside at all, even though it sounded clear. That could only mean it was coming from just outside my window. I forced myself out of bed, stood slowly, and peeked behind the curtain. In the faint outside light, I could see the outline of a person standing at the front door back to me. It was terrifying. I watched a little longer and realized they were lightly, repeatedly tapping on the glass, as if expecting an answer. But that was insane. It was past midnight, and all the lights were off. I tried to make out more details, but without more light, I couldn't. As I watched, the person began to turn around. Instinctively, I ducked below the windowsill, heart racing. I stayed crouched there for a full minute, terrified I'd been seen. I didn't want to look again, but I had to. Taking a deep breath, I slowly stood and peeled back the curtain and instantly regretted it. There, just inches from the glass, was a face staring back at me. I yelled and recoiled, yanking the curtain shut. In that split second, I saw it was a man with shriveled, melting-looking skin. I fell back onto the bed, still yelling, which woke Anna. I screamed that someone was outside, locked the bedroom door, grabbed my phone, and called the police. They arrived a little over 10 minutes later. Anna and I stayed locked in my room the whole time. She clutched my arm and wouldn't let me go to the door. Once the police came, I let them in and explained everything. They did a quick sweep and, with my help, confirmed there was no forced entry and the house was secure. That eased my mind somewhat, but it didn't explain who that guy was or where he'd gone. After walking the perimeter with their flashlights and checking the yard, they told me they didn't find anything unusual. One officer said to call if I saw him again, and then they left. The rest of the week passed without incident.
What you're about to hear is an experience that nearly shattered my sanity. Even now, I think about it often if I'm being honest, though I've managed to recover somewhat in the months since. The whole story is fairly quick, so I'll get right into it. I'm a single guy in my mid-30s, living alone with no pets in a small one-story house. It's a modest place. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a living room, kitchen, dining area, and a tiny garage. That's it. Life is fantastic. My profession allows me to work on my own time, answering to no one. No girlfriend, no parents, no employer. Freedom has always been a core value for me, and I've done my best to maximize it wherever I can. I know many people are different, and some might judge what they call my immature lifestyle, but everyone has different priorities. As long as no one judges me, I won't judge them. That freedom does come with its own set of drawbacks, though. I've developed some habits others might frown upon, like my god-awful sleep schedule. For some reason, I'm most productive late at night, so I often stay up until dawn and sleep into the afternoon. It's just how my body works, and until I'm forced to change, I don't see a reason to. One night, I was up extremely late, past 3 a.m. I was sitting at my desk, deeply focused on some work on my computer. I was in the zone, not even listening to music. The room was dead silent. It was just me, my thoughts, and the sound of my keyboard. Then, bam! Out of nowhere, the silence was shattered by the sound of footsteps pounding down the hallway toward my bedroom, followed by 3 or 4 deafening bangs on my door. They were the kind of bangs you'd expect from police trying to storm a drug den. I shot up from my chair so fast, I banged my knee on the desk and knocked my monitor over. I was completely shocked, caught entirely off guard. Imagine being alone in your own house at 3 a.m. in total silence, and then suddenly hearing violent banging on your door. It was, and still is, the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. Standing up was pure reflex. After that, I was frozen. My eyes were fixed on the door, dreading the moment I was sure would come. The door bursting open and someone charging in, forcing me to fight a stranger in pitch darkness. But that moment never came. I didn't hear anything else, not even footsteps retreating. It was like I had imagined it, but I was 100% positive I hadn't. I don't know how long I stood there, but I physically couldn't force myself to move. It felt like sleep paralysis, except I was wide awake. Then finally, I heard footsteps quickly walking back down the hall. So someone had been there. I don't know why, but hearing those footsteps again unlocked my brain. Without thinking, I grabbed an empty beer bottle from my desk, ran to the door, and started chasing after whoever had broken into my home. I didn't even try to be quiet. I screamed at the top of my lungs like a lunatic, hoping the adrenaline would carry me. I ran through the entire house screaming, but I never found anyone. My house isn't big, and there aren't many places to hide. Yet even after checking every room, there was no one. All the doors and windows were still locked, which made it even more confusing. My burst of confidence drained away completely, and fear came flooding back. I sprinted to my room, locked the door, and called the police. While waiting for them, I listened in complete silence, but heard nothing. When the police arrived, we searched the house together and found nothing. One officer tried to convince me that whoever had been there had already left, but I insisted everything had been locked. He said I'd probably overlooked something, and it took everything in me not to curse him out right then.